track is where the entire San Francisco Giants are apparently going to be built from going forward, because this isn't just one of those. This is not one of those shrewd business moves. This is not one of those everything is business as usual until something becomes unusual, and something became so unusual we had to back out in the 11th hour. This isn't business is big and nasty and leaves people with hurt feelings all the time situations. It's not. This is bordering on personal. And before San Francisco Giants, take the field next year, before they even play the national anthem, they should have to play this over the loudspeaker for every home game, because this is the way that they will be talked about by every single agent and by every single player going forward under the way they are currently built in the Johnson regime in the Farhan era. Scott Boras talking about how close this was to happening, to the point where how could this not be personal? This is Scott Boras today on New York Sportsnet.
We were all in the hotel in San Francisco. He had his parents there, his brother, his wife's parents. It was certainly a roller coaster for the Correa family.
Was he in the room with you, or you called him in his room?
I called him to my room. And
so he came into your room?
Yeah, he came into my room.
What was his reaction?
He was obviously surprised, as we all were, frankly. We're very surprised.
I think Scott Boras is going to sit down, just jump right into good faith negotiations with the San Francisco Giants without being a little skeptical or leery the rest of the way. Like, if you guys aren't going to go the full extra country mile for Carlos Correa, who even with the completely made up problems that your doctors are diagnosing, has the fourth best WAR in the history of the position of shortstop across the entire history of Major League Baseball before his age 28 season.
Yeah, I mean, there are so many disconnects here. It's hard to know where they begin. If money's a problem, they should never have been playing in the Aaron Judge end. But money apparently wasn't a problem then. Then they're playing in the Carlos Correa end. And when they're talking about the number of years and the money they're talking about, why did it take them this long to get cold feet? There's clearly a communication issue here, just for starters, between San Francisco and Florida. Florida being where Charlie Johnson lives. It can't take this long to make up your mind about how much money we can spend or choose to spend. So that's number one. Number two, if there's a medical issue, they don't even have to go through any kind of charade. They can just go, you know what? He flunked our physical. So we don't even have to go through this. We don't have to call anybody. We don't have to do anything. I think it seems pretty clear, unless some new evidence comes out, that the people in San Francisco were ready to do this deal. And Charlie Johnson said no, either because of the money, or because of the years, or just because he was in a bad mood. But it's the only way that any of this makes sense, because Farhan Zaidi's job is now infinitely more difficult because he's been made to look
ridiculous,
feckless. Greg Johnson, who, is basically just there to see how things are going and then report to his father, he clearly, backed Zaidi on this. And he's made to look ridiculous. And the only person left in this pyramid is Charlie. And
who is ridiculous?
Well, he is now. I mean,
he's shoveling money into Herschel Walker's furnace. He's a big Lauren Breitbart, whatever her name is, fan. Like, this guy, he doesn't bet on anything but the losers lately.
Yeah, he's had a bad year. But this is more than all that. This is basically being disingenuous to the point of being dishonest. Either you're going to tell your people yes, or you're going to tell them no, and you're going to do it a lot quicker than they did.
How is Scott Boras not negotiating directly with him if he's the money guy? Do you think Scott Boras is jerking around with middlemen?
Because he's not answering any of those phones. He just,
Well, it's time for the old man to tap out then.
Well, then that's an excellent point.
And so
if he's not, if this is all he's going to do from here on out, he will find that owning this baseball team is a very unpleasant, if profitable thing. And if all he's doing is just cashing money, then
It won't be unpleasant.
then they are the Pittsburgh Pirates.
So one of the things that I have to tell you, one of the things I have to tell the audience, and again, I cannot tell you where I got this information from, so you're either going to be like, all right, Damon, I'm going to take you at your word, or you can be skeptical here. I don't care if you believe me or not, but here's what I know, is that there is a current San Francisco Giant right now who really doesn't have a deal with the San Francisco Giant, who would like to very much end his career in a Giants uniform and not take triple the money to go be a Baltimore Oriole. Last name rhymes with Smelt. And
Gee, I wonder who this is.
and he can't get the Giants on the phone. The Giants do not have any sense of urgency about their negotiations. And if it's all because there's a doddering old man who can't bring his eyes up from Fox News long enough to make a phone call, take a phone call, and get a deal done, it's starting to sort of come into focus where the broken apparatus is in these negotiations. It's a time issue. The Giants don't spring on anything. They're a day 3 participant in free agent negotiations, right? I mean, that's pretty much how it's felt over the last since Charlie Johnson took over. They don't appear on the, very first Hot Stove League show coming, the free agency's officially open. We got 3 players signed. One of them is going to the Giants. That never happens. This team waits forever to call back free agents, their own players, people that have been career San Francisco Giants. There is no sense of urgency in any way the front office operates, and I've got that from people who are dressing inside the clubhouse.
The only question that I would have in response to that is it the people in San Francisco or is it the guy in Florida? And it's looking more and more like the people in San Francisco, they might want to do some things, but they have to clear it with the guy in Florida, and the guy in Florida is not clearing anything.
Here's the deal.
Because there's no
Farhan should be resigning today then, right? Shouldn't he?
Well, yeah, except they don't have many of these jobs, and maybe he's just going to go, okay, these are the conditions I'm working under now. I mean, he might just, grit his teeth and grind through it because there are other owners like Charlie Johnson, and there are more owners like Charlie Johnson than there are like Steve Cohen. So he might just decide, you know what, this is now a really crummy job, but it still pays really well.
We'll talk more about Steve in a second here. 888-957-9570. This is Mark in San Francisco. Hello, Mark.
Hey, what's up, guys? How you guys doing today?
Very well.
I just want to say, man, I honestly, truly believe that Gabe Kapler has lost the Giants locker room. And I feel like there are many signs that point to that. The first one is that scruff that he had when he was pulling out, I forget who it was, Sam Littell or some reliever, some powerhouse guy that they love to use. But anyway, he was pulling him out, and we all remember they had that little stare down and argument and whatnot. And I think that speaks volume, man, because if you ever hear Gabe Kapler talking in an interview about the team, he's always talking about this organization, this team, never us, our team. When you hear Bochy talk, it was always us, our team. I made a mistake. Gabe I had this feeling like he tries too hard to be this dominant figure within a locker room, and that just rubs a lot of guys off.
So, Mark, I can tell you definitively that half the clubhouse likes Gabe Kapler, the other half, the veteran half, really doesn't. They think he's a little bit of a preening schmo, and they've met smarter baseball men. They've met people who handle situations better. Again, Gabe Kapler is so far to the extreme end of political correctness that really doesn't play in the clubhouse as much as, there is no dumber group of athletes who just want to be told what's what, and I mean this with all due respect, than major league ball players. They don't want things couched and landed the right way. Like a major leaguer doesn't give a damn that, we don't pinch hit for, we pinch hit with, which Gabe made such a big deal out of this. All they care is that they're not getting their at bat and someone else is. Gabe Kapler has issues in his own clubhouse that need some massaging and revolving, and you're right about that, Mark. But this has absolutely nothing to do with Gabe Kapler, this issue with Carlos Correa. Nothing. Carlos Correa and Gabe Kapler are not two things to complain about equally here. It's just there will be times and reasons to wonder whether or not Gabe is the right guy for that player or that player or that player, but it's got nothing to do with the issue at hand. As a matter of fact, he is the only guy, Ray, that I'm willing to excuse and exonerate from any guilt of this. This isn't business done in his office.
No, well, it's also not done with him in the room. I mean, this is
right. They tell him who's on the team, not the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. And beyond all the rest of that, Gabe Kapler is, like most managers, pretty much just an adjunct of the front office anyway. Between the lineups he puts out, the strategies he employs, the pitching that he uses, and the order in which they're used. It's the off season. The manager is, he may as well be fishing. I mean, he has to go to organizational meetings, but for the most part, he's off till the 1st of February when he's got to get spring training organized.
Right.
So, yeah, Gabe Kapler's not the issue.
No, Gabe doesn't enter the picture until everyone's in Scottsdale.
And more to the point, he's not really a good stalking horse for why the Giants aren't winning. We just saw what the new business model is. Even if it wasn't the old business model, the new business model is we're not spending money. Pure and simple, we're not spending money. So if you're not spending money, then do what the Pirates did and don't get involved in free agency. Don't bother. Because if that's how you're going to do this, don't say we will not be outspent. Because this time, they got outspent by the Yankees. But, okay, Aaron Judge gets to decide. They didn't get outspent by the Mets. The Mets spent less to take Carlos Correa than the Giants said they were willing to spend to get him. So this is now more not about losing race to offer a guy the most money. It's about bailing out of a deal that you've already made. That's it.
Yeah,
and that's more than we can't afford it. It's we don't want to.
Someone from the 510 on the Xfinity mobile text line said, I thought that Buster Posey was supposed to bring credibility to the Giants front office. No. Buster Posey's there to bring likability to the ownership group. But
he's more likable now than he was.
Look at it this way. Buster Posey doesn't do anything to help the Giants run any more than the medallion on your hood helps your car engine go. He's just a medallion on the hood. And I say that with all due respect. If Buster would ever asked about anything baseball, he would have the right answer. But he is nothing more than the pretty girl that you might want to talk to in the corner of the room if you were a free agent.
But he's also not empowered to be that, even if he has baseball expertise to provide. It's not business expertise, because that's what we're talking about.
Right.
This is not about baseball at all. So, Buster Posey's not part of this either.
No, not at all.
It's the first two texts we've gotten are for two guys who had nothing to do with this deal.
888-957-9570. This is Adam in San Francisco. Hello, Adam.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me on, guys. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. What do you got?
Yeah, I wanted to talk about Carlos Correa and what's going on here, because I'm a lifelong Giants fan, and went to Kansas with my parents and brother, and now I'm taking my own kids to Oracle, and it's going to be kind of hard to go to games now. You can't even trust the team. How does something like this happen? And is it Farhan's fault? Is it the owner's fault? Where do we place the blame?
Well, it's
the owner's fault.
Pretty much what we're talking about today. And Ray and I, who we don't agree on much, I think both absolutely have the right person to peg this on. Well, this comes from down on high. Negotiation. Look at it this way. Ross Stripling, whatever you need, Farhan. Sean Manaea, whatever you need. Haniger, all right, well, we're going to make enough money to where we'll check in with a younger Johnson. But when you're talking about an amount of money that you normally spend on a skyscraper, that's when you bring in, the big decision maker. And unfortunately, for the San Francisco Giants fans, The decision maker seems to be a hard to get a hold of, perpetually cheap, frugal, doesn't really want to win douchebag in Florida. So that's rough. It's a tough place to be operating from.
Yeah. That's how this boils down, unless the Giants have a elaborate song and dance that is more persuadable than the evidence we have so far, which is they had a deal and then they bailed. And the only guy who can bail out of that deal is Charlie Johnson.
Yeah, this goes right to the desk that says the buck stops here, and it stops on Chucky's desk.
No bucks for you.
Yeah. Bob Myers was on with Steiny and Guru, as Whitey was in yesterday. And Bob Myers had this to say about how ownership does matter when it comes to getting deals done on high.
And I think 90% or more of GMs clear these things with their owner because the money is so big now. It's not, I think in the past, not that the deals were small, but I'm talking about $300 million. And you're talking about what happens if you get it wrong or right. Owner engagement has probably never been more than it is now, because I think when you buy a team for $1 billion, $2 billion, $3 billion, you're going to be involved in your team for the most part. That wasn't always the case 25 years ago. Teams were going for $100 million, $200 million. Still an absolutely crazy amount of money for most people, but that's different. This is going to sound bad to say, but there was a lot of people that could buy a team for $100 or $200 million 15, 20 years ago. There's not a lot of people now that have $3-4 billion to buy a team, a football team, a baseball team, a basketball team. So the people that do want to know what's going on, and I get that.
The thing is, the Giants are currently in the hands of this ownership group because an ownership group that did care died. That's why it's Charlie Johnson now.
Yeah. Look, I get why you would be leery of spending that much money and that many years, but that's a decision you have to make at the outset.
Right.
Because I refuse to believe that Farhan Zaidi did this deal on his own without talking to anybody.
There's a reason why Jillian doesn't go to Versace to start her shopping trip, because she knows that we can't afford that. So we don't even bother shopping in that store.
Well, maybe
we go
you
to
should
stores
work harder.
We go to stores that, amen. But hey, whose side are you on here, Ray?
I'm just saying, is she worth Versace or not?
There is there's no woman in the world worth Versace. It's ridiculous.
Money don't make money.
No, that is ridiculous. First of all, we have signed the free agent. But no, look, that is unless you are galactically wealthy, don't even bother walking in here store. So we don't even bother walking in there. It's the same reason why I think of my next car and I don't pop on into Lamborghini to start browsing. That's just not going to happen. So we're going to start walking on the lots that I know that should I actually be interested in something, my wife isn't going to beat me over the head with a frying pan if I went ahead and actually bought it.
The dynamics are really pretty simple here. Either Farhan Zaidi went off on his own to do the Correa deal because he felt lousy about not getting Judge, which seems unlikely. He talked to Greg Johnson, said, I want to offer this to Correa. And Greg Johnson said fine without clearing it with his father, which is also plausible, certainly more plausible than Zaidi going off on his own. Or Greg Johnson went to his father said, yeah, go ahead, and then changed his mind and just said, get out of this. I don't want to do it. And if it takes that long to make up your mind about 13 years and $350 million, you're not engaged. You're not paying attention. Because that's a simple yes or no.
So we're eating at the French Laundry tonight? I can answer that question at the speed of light.
Yeah,
that's a no. We're not going there tonight.
And if you say yes, to me, as soon as the other side is notified, we can go with that. Your word needs to be your bond.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like the deal all of a sudden, you have to go, you know what? We're in, so we're in.
You can't not support the deal you put on the table.
Exactly. And that's so they either don't communicate well enough, they do communicate, but it takes them too long to make up their minds, or they got sheet jerked by their own guy. Those are the only possibilities at this point.
888-957-9570. We have calls lining up, and as soon as we return, we will start taking those calls. But just to add a touch more personal insult to the injury of this whole thing, Ron Kroichek in the Chronicle today said that Correa clearly wasn't expecting any complications. As a matter of fact, he went house hunting with his family on Monday afternoon over in Lafayette. Correa, his wife, his child, and business managers enthusiastically looked at one house listing, and the agent wrote an email to the Chronicle saying that Correa saw several houses on his tour, described Correa as gracious, delightful, totally kind to those joining him. He chatted easily and expressed excitement at the prospect of joining the San Francisco Giants. 17 hours later, the Giants abruptly postponed the news conference to introduce Carlos Correa as their $350 million man. If you are on hold, you are coming up next. Another man who wrote yet another magnum opus about how this all fell apart, Tom Verducci from the pages of Sports Illustrated. He'll be joining us at 4:15. We've got Steve Kerr joining us at 5 o'clock. Don't you go anywhere. You want to get in line, get there. 888-957-9570. And I really mean this. Normally, I feel like it's my job to tell a sports fan in the Bay Area, you don't need to be as angry as you are. My job today is to tell you, you need to be angrier than you actually are if you are a San Francisco Giants fan. I really mean that. This should piss you off maybe more than any result, any Dodger game ever produced, because this is your own organization doing that to its own credibility.